Hello, everybody. Andy Jacob here with the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. I have a great show today. You know, when we interview entrepreneurs all around the world, one thing that really comes to mind is if people don't know about your company, you don't have a company. I mean, it's really important, of course, to have the right digital strategy, of course, the right PR, the right marketing for your company. And I've been able to bring on a real expert. First of all, I love the name of her agency. It's called the Growth Grabber Agency. I mean, who doesn't want to grow? Who doesn't want to grab clients and, of course, give them the superior service they both expect and deserve? She's a real leader in the field. Her name is Nicole McGagnon. And, of course, Nicole is the founder, chief strategist of Growth Grabber Agency. Well, first of all, when I saw the name Growth Grabber, I said to myself, we need to get Nicole on the show just because she's such an expert in branding and has come up with such a great name for her own business. But Nicole, welcome to the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. I mean, wow. I mean, you've got, I like to say you've got your customers covered, right? I mean, you've got over 20 years of experience. You must have started when you were like 3 years old in this industry. Let's talk about it. You have over 20 specialists working on the team. Let's pull the lens back to 30,000 feet. Tell us about the Growth Grabber, and away we go.
Absolutely. And once again, Andy, thank you for having me. So Growth Grabber Agencies, the actual agency started about 2 years ago. And for about a year now, I've been able to run a fully holistic business by means of, I'm a fully referral-based business. I don't really advertise too much for myself, which is kind of the opposite of what I tell people. But I do things like this, doing PR interviews to show how much PR and personal branding really works for our clients because I'm doing it myself. I put myself in their shoes as well. We do everything from PR to marketing, personal branding, a real big focus on personal branding in our PR market. So we help influencers and creatives who want to create a brand for themselves and maybe start a business or do something outside of that. And then on the opposite side, we help business owners that want to create a strong enough brand for their business and themselves to then do other things, whether it's sell the business eventually or step away from the day-to-day and just have other streams of income.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's so hard to cut through these days. And that's why it resonates for so many influencers, so many companies, so many CEOs. They've heard about what you're doing at the Growth Grabber. I call it the Growth Grabber instead of Growth Grabber because I kind of like the Growth Grabber.
I love it.
But they reach out to you all the time. And like you said, you get so many referrals and you have so many testimonials of people coming in. One thing that you really are an expert in is something I call social presence. I mean, you help brands look better on social media, of course. And of course, this influencer network that you've been able to put together is really remarkable. Let's talk about that a little bit. How important is that part of the business to make sure that, of course, the influencers get this type of presence that they really need in today's day and age?
Oh, we all know now that there are commodities in the world that you can't argue with. And these days, a huge commodity is attention. Attention equals leverage, and leverage is everything in this world. Right now, there are influencers that are making 5-6 figures from branding deals, just from making posts. All of that, it has nothing to do with, super amounts of skills. It's being able to have the right creative, catching people's attention. So when you can trade attention for leverage and that for money, it is absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, I love it, Nicole. Of course, everybody talks about this, right? Everybody wants to get that viral thing going. Everybody wants, on Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is, to get this exposure. And there's certain people that just sort of have it, something they know how to do that kind of resonates and clicks in with the viewers. And of course, they get all the attention. But for companies, even small to mid-sized companies, I mean, they're running a company. The last thing they really know how to do is how to get this attention. And that's really where you come in because they're running their business. They can't really be an expert where you are about social influence and how to get them the type of, eyeballs that they want and that they need. So they reach out to you. So let's talk about that. What's that conversation sound like when one of these many companies that keep on reaching out to you, hey, they say, Nicole, I've heard about what you're doing. Let's go with the Growth Grabber.
Absolutely. Well, usually my initial conversation with people is really digging into what I don't like to use the word goals too much, because when I say goals, immediately people are thinking of a monetary value. They want to know where their next sales are coming from. I like to think beyond that. I like to ask them what their true dreams are and then work backwards from that dream. So whether it's writing a book, whether it's becoming a speaker on stage, whether it's just scaling their business enough to either franchise or step away, I'm able to have those deeper conversations with them, knowing that what I do, I don't take it lightly. You know, marketing and sales, your next 3 sales, where they're coming from, those things are great. But what I do can truly have a lasting effect on somebody's life. So I don't take it lightly. And I have those deep conversations with people because there are people that aren't necessarily ready at the moment for what we do. And that's where having those conversations, digging a little bit deeper. And as far as getting the outreach with influencers and things, I like to be that connector. So the influencers that I help, I'm always keeping them top of mind to, if I know somebody that is already in my roster and fits with one of the brands that are coming to me, I will try and get them together. If in other stances, I'm connected to a whole bunch of influencer agencies, podcast networks. I try and build as many relationships as possible and be that ultimate middle woman for people and get them connected.
Yeah, I love it, Nicole. You know, you talk about it and it resonates for me because you have that conversation, but you really want to know about the goals and you want to know what the life goals and you want to know what the long-term goals, and you don't like using goals, but the long-term aspirations are, so that you can determine the best process. Of course, you're great at what you do. And of course, you can put things in place for the now. But I think what you're saying is you like to connect the dots. You like to have a seamless integration from now till then so that it all makes sense and it all is a cohesive unit. Now, let's talk about PR. I mean, you're an expert in PR, public relations. I mean, everybody talks about PR, especially on the show. We talk about it a lot. What's your take on PR? I mean, for a company or an influencer, you know, what's some strategies maybe that the younger entrepreneurs watching the show can kind of start thinking about what it takes to have good PR? I mean, some people believe and have said, and I agree, that, you know, PR is better than advertising, right? So let's talk about that.
So it's a little bit hand in hand, and you touched upon it right at the end. I wouldn't necessarily say PR is better than advertising. They kind of go hand in hand. Your PR needs to kind of hold the hand of your marketing. It needs to project the same message. It needs to get out there. PR is more for visibility, brand recognition, and relevancy. Relevancy is probably a thing that not many people talk about that often. But think about these brands that have been around kind of forever, and we still relate to them because they are constantly putting out either new initiatives, new technology. They are staying relevant. But how do they get that information to the masses? It's by doing PR, doing press releases, being in editorials, etc. I think another thing that people miss out on highly is something we touched on earlier, is leverage. So many PR companies, they are wonderful. They're wonderful about getting you in publications, on podcasts, on TV. But where they kind of drop the ball a little bit is that leveraging strategy and social media strategy follow-up with that client. And here at Growth Grabber, we're able to do a little bit of everything. We give people that social media strategy on how to turn that PR into leverage into getting better opportunities for them.
Yeah, that's interesting, Nicole, because, you know, the old guard in the PR agency space, they know public relations like the back of their hand. But some of them really haven't gotten up to speed on leveraging the strategy of the PR in conjunction, like you're saying, with social. And that's so important, really interesting. let's talk about that a little bit, because I find it so interesting that you mentioned, Nicole, consistency. Sometimes you see a brand and you see them somewhere, and then you go to the website, and then you go to their social, and it's a mix. It's a mixed bag. You don't know what's going on. I mean, they have different colors and different messaging, and it's different landing pages. I mean, you don't know where to go. Confuses the consumer to the point they just shut it out, and they just say, "Hey, I don't want to do business with this company because they're not consistent." So let's talk about how important consistency is to your practice.
I don't know how to say enough about this. There are so many people that I've run into that actually come to me with this issue. They will say, "Hey, Nicole, I'm getting, followers on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, and I'm getting hits on the website, but I'm not getting conversion." And then when I take a little bit of a deeper dive into kind of all the different pieces that are going on, I'll do a full audit on them. I'll look at the website. I'll look at all the social media. I'll look at their YouTube and check their branding. And sometimes it's so bad that they're having different logos in different places. And the message that they're putting out there, just themselves, personal branding in conjunction with their business, sometimes they don't match up quite right. And there needs to be that consistency so that there is recognition, so that people see that they know what they're going to get when they come to you. And I think some people miss the ball with that. But we do a full audit and kind of able to tie all those pieces together in conjunction. We're looking more long-term than short-term successes. I want to set my clients up for success. And if we don't take care of those, sometimes they can be very little changes in the beginning. We take care of those little changes first and then work up to the bigger things.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And one thing that you've become very well known for at Growth Grabber, the Growth Grabber, as I call it, is it's one thing in marketing and influencer marketing and PR to be in front of the right audience. That's one thing. It's another thing really to be in front of the right audience in the right way and at the right time. So let's talk about that, because that's a great sort of thing that you've done very well, and you've become very well known for.
Yeah, absolutely. Timing is everything, especially with PR. We incorporate strategic PR into our kind of repertoire. And what that really means is pitching the right journalist, the right publication at the right time for the right client. And this takes time. It takes time. We know that, for example, holiday season comes running around, and all these companies, especially if they have a product or service, they're trying to get on lists, they're trying to get in editorials, they're trying to get on gift guides. However, in the PR world, that stuff actually starts around summertime. So we're coming up around now where people need to start pitching for the holiday season and getting those things ready because they want to have things ready to go. A lot of times companies are waiting too late to do things, or they don't have things prepared. One thing I talk about with my clients, especially right in the beginning, when it comes to PR, we need to put together all the information ready to go so that when a journalist or an editor reaches back out, they want to have everything ready. That means headshots, product shots, making sure it's on the right background so it can be either on the web or publications without all the convoluted stuff behind it. There's so many little things to get ready and prepared ahead of time before you even start PR. But doing everything in the right timing, reaching the right journalist can truly have such an impact on their business.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And of course, your company, the Growth Grabber, has become known as a company that has some very, very professional talent. So let's talk about that. When you hire someone to join your team, what are you looking for? Is it the background and experience, the passion to help the clients, or is it a combination of the two?
It is a combination of the two, but one thing that I look for specifically when you mentioned passion for the clients is empathy. I know I am very empathic myself. I tend to get personally invested with my clients. A lot of my clients have become friends just because I believe in them so much. I sometimes have to separate myself and not think as much about potential, but think about their actual situation in that moment. But I try and encourage clients. So when I'm hiring somebody else and looking for somebody else to fill those roles, I want somebody that can look at the world in that way. I want them to be able to think creatively outside of the box of, okay, this is the client's path and this is the exact structure and way to do it. I like people that think of 18 different ways on how to get to that end result. Not so much about the drive and how you get there, but it's about the destination.
I love it. I love it. That's going to be the name of your TED Talk or the book you're going to write. I love that. You have a statistic that people aren't even going to believe. I mean, you've helped pages grow from under 1,000 followers to over 1 million. I mean, that's outrageous. I mean, everybody wishes they had 1 million of anything, let alone followers. So when you have a company or an influencer reach out to you and they say, hey, Nicole, we've heard about what you're doing, do you put together a game plan? Does it look like it's a systematic approach from A to Z with the timeframes necessary to get this great result that you become known for?
Absolutely. So one of those conversations in the beginning, while we're getting those goals and dreams, we're asking what their timeline is. And then at the same time, I'm also comparing it to a realistic timeline. Because of course, everybody wants results in 3 months. The fact of the matter is it's less likely to happen. We need to be realistic. And again, sometimes we have to take a step back and work on the little things before we get to some of those bigger aspects, the PR, let's say TV interviews like this. So we take a step back and work. But what I do is I provide a roadmap and I break it down into quarterly chunks on what we're going to work on and what the expected results are going to be because of that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And of course, any client loves or would love to have that type of systematic approach to being successful, because that's the way it has to be done. It can't be a hodgepodge of throwing things against the wall. Of course, any good marketer, we're going to throw a few things against the wall just to try them out, but at the same time, it's really based on data and it's based on, what your experience and what you've done at Growth Grabber prior with other clients has resulted in. Let's talk about this consistency. So let's say you have a client. They're all over the map. You tighten things up for them. You get them on the path, right? Now, you do everything you're supposed to do. I mean, you're getting, them exposure. And if let's say they're a company selling something, they're getting traffic and they're getting people to the website and they're getting people to interact. But the company, after you've done all this, maybe they have an inability to get back to people in time. Or maybe they have an ability to sort of make those leads sort of monetize. Maybe they take 48 hours to make a phone call back to a potential client. Do you work on that aspect of the business as well with your clients?
I give advice in that aspect of the business. It is one of the questions that we kind of go through while we're auditing the company and the process and what we're going to do for them, because some companies just aren't prepared on the back end for the traffic that they're about to receive. So we need to make sure, for example, if you're manufacturing a product and you're now getting, 10 times, 20 times, 100 times more traffic than what you were getting before, are you prepared to fill those orders? Are you prepared to get the phone calls? So I can give them advice and recommendations. I have plenty of people that I'm connected with that work on the actual back-end business strategy side of things. But yes, I want to make sure that they're fully prepared before we start anything on our side of the business.
Yeah, Nicole, you're throwing a party and, the old saying, don't throw a party when nobody comes. You're going to throw a party and everybody's going to come. So the clients need to be ready to go, of course. Now, I know one thing that's very important to you is giving back to the community. And one thing that's very important to you is giving back and being a mentor and doing great things, not only in your business life, but in your personal life as well. Let's get back to the entrepreneurial community. Let's talk to the entrepreneurs, Nicole. And I'm sure they've learned so much about PR and branding and strategy and everything else during this conversation. I already know I'm going to bring it back on the show. For the younger entrepreneurs watching this show, let's say they're having a tough time. Maybe they're going through a roadblock. Maybe they hit a pothole. Maybe you could share some insight as a fellow entrepreneur about what those younger entrepreneurs could do to get through those tough times during their business process.
Absolutely. And this kind of touches home with me a little bit. Not necessarily, it's more life advice than just for entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs should take it to heart because I'm in the same boat as you. 10 years ago, I actually was, 11 years ago, I was diagnosed with Cushing's syndrome. 10 years ago, I actually had brain surgery to have a tumor removed. And this is not for any kind of sympathy. This is to tell you that 10 years later, I am thriving. And back then, I did not have such a great time. I was going through a very rough time. And entrepreneurship and personal life, if you're going through a rough time, all of these mentors and speakers and motivational speakers, they're going to tell you the same thing. Get through it, positivity, but everybody's story is different. And being able to share that story, heal, and really use whatever happened in your life as fuel to get through it and to get on to the next thing. A lot of people just take too much time and it kind of takes them out of the world. So if something happens in your business, instead of just stopping for a month or 2 months or a year, it's taking a weekend, processing and get through it and move on to the next stage. Use that trauma, that turmoil, whatever you're going through, use it for fuel to get you to the next landing.
Wow, Nicole, what a story. I mean, this is one of the reasons why you look at the long term of your clients and you have this empathy that you mentioned because you've been through it and you've seen things that a lot of people haven't seen before. It made you think about what it's all about. And it's not just all about making the money and building this great company, which, obviously is important as an entrepreneur. It's about really caring for your clients. I know that you also believe in helping and mentoring and giving back to the community. I mean, I'm going to bring you back on and we're going to bring it in a little bit closer, just talking about, I want to get a little secret sauce on how you took this page from under 1,000 over 1 million, followers. It's really powerful. Maybe you won't get that secret sauce out to me, but maybe if I, coax you enough, you'll do it. Listen, this has been a great interview. I loved having you on the show, Nicole. I've been really waiting for the growth grabber queen to come on. And thank you so much for coming on the .com magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight series today.
I really appreciate you having me, Andy. Thank you.